Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the 2026 election hustings for the Deputies of St John, St Lawrence and Trinity. I'm Cathy Keir and I'm taking us through the proceedings this evening. We've got until 9 o'clock, so I hope you've all got plenty of questions for the candidates. Before we start, a bit of housekeeping. Can you please make sure your phones are on airplane mode so they don't interfere with the tech? We're not expecting a fire alarm this evening, so if you hear one, please head quietly and calmly to the exits. There's a loo just through there if you need one during the 2 hours. This event's being live streamed to the vote.je YouTube account, so for those of you joining online, welcome. You can access subtitles if you press the button at the bottom of your screen. So you can vote for up to 3 of the 4 candidates this evening, and they are, starting from left to right, Phil Romrell, Independent, Peter McClinton, Independent, Hilary Jeanne, Independent, and Kirsten Morell, Independent. The candidates have decided that they'll each make an opening speech lasting up to 3 minutes, and we've drawn lots to decide on the order that they'll speak. They then allocated 90 seconds to answer each of your questions. They'd like you to ask one question at a time, and they'll take it in turns to answer the question first. So let's kick off with the speeches. First, Phil Romrell.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for giving up your evening and coming along to our hustings. So now, my name's Phil Romrell, and I'm asking for one of your votes to be one of your deputies for the next 4 years. Now, the last 5 weeks, it seems longer, but last 5 weeks I've been walking around all of the parishes, and one thing has struck me very much. We all love our parishes. We are committed to them, this sense of community, the sense of looking out for one another, but also the sense of personal responsibility. And these are the values that I have come to recognise totally in these parishes, and it is what I believe makes these parishes the true heart of Jersey. Now, they're also my values. I grew up in St John and brought my family up in St John. And throughout my life, I have run my business with these values core to the heart. So there's a pharmacy business which ended up operating in both Jersey and Guernsey, and at one point was dispensing about 1/3 of the prescriptions across the whole Channel Islands. And then in the last few years, the last 8 years, I've been the chair of family nursing and home care, and I've worked across the charity sector in different areas. One thing I've learned through my career is teamwork is everything. So you bring people together, you create great teams, you can really get lots and lots done. I'm afraid it is not something I fully recognise regularly in the way our government operates. Quite often it feels people are pulling in different directions, wasting their time, wasting our money, and actually sometimes I think it feels like it's breaking our trust in what our government can deliver. It is, to me, the most important thing of the next 4 years, the government getting a control of how it operates and delivering for people in the island. Now, there are other critical issues. The big one that's been running around this election campaign has been the cost of living, and it's one of the reasons why I am very proud to endorse the Value Jersey programme to tackle both short-term issues around cost of living, like the supermarket idea, some of the more structural stuff around government spending, etc., that does feed through to all of our cost of living, but also to help businesses grow, because actually by our economy growing, we will put more money into people's pockets, and that's the important thing to help deal with that. I have personal ambitions which tie in with my professional career in healthcare. But the last thing is my relationship as deputy. I view the role as deputy as being an important bridge between you, your constable, your future constable, whoever they are, and the ministerial team to ensure that your voices are heard when the big decisions are being made. So that's my commitment to you if you elect me on the 7th of June. Thank you.
Peter McClinton.
Good evening. Thank you so much for coming along this evening and taking some time out of your life to do this. At a time when many islanders are beginning to wonder whether government ever actually listens, I want to start with a simple promise. If you place your trust in me as one of your deputies, I will never forget who it is that I am in the assembly to serve. It is you, and yours. My name is Peter McClinton. I was born in Jersey, educated here, and after leaving school at 16, I have spent nearly 50 years, good grief, working on this island. I've never lived anywhere else, never paid tax or social security to another jurisdiction, and I've dedicated my entire adult life to Jersey and to its people. I am the proud father of 5 amazing children, and I have 4 gorgeous grandchildren, all of whom live in Jersey, and that alone gives me a personal stake in our island's future. My family's links with St. Lawrence run deep. 3 of my children attended Balroyal School. My son James, just there, took Gerrier lessons at St. Lawrence School next door. I'm not quite sure you're up to it anymore, though, are you, mate? And my wife Gina has taught music there through the Jersey Music Service. But tonight is not really about where me and mine have been. It's about where Jersey is going. We live on one of the most beautiful islands in the world. My belief is simple. An island this beautiful should be just as wonderful to live in. I'm standing because I am sick and tired of watching government manage decline instead of showing ambition and building for the future. For too long, we've been told why things cannot be done, why housing is difficult, why healthcare is difficult, and why common sense solutions are somehow impossible. I utterly reject that mindset. We're a small island and we should be able to make decisions and act quickly, yet too often government seems trapped by caution and bureaucracy, explaining problems instead of solving them. You deserve better than that. We're a small island and we should be able to make decisions and act quickly, yet too often government seems trapped by caution and bureaucracy. So, I have no political affiliation. I am fiercely independent because I want to represent you directly, not a party, not a political movement or a ministerial agenda. The next few years will help shape the Jersey our children and grandchildren inherit. We cannot afford more drift, more excuses, or more missed opportunities. If elected, I will listen, work hard, and never forget who I am there to serve. It will be an honor to serve you. Please consider me for one of your votes this coming Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you. Hilary Jeanne.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for coming out tonight. I grew up in St. John's, but St. Lawrence is very much woven into my family's life. My eldest son plays for St. Lawrence Football Club. Our family has been part of St. Lawrence Scouts since my children started as beavers, and I've watched them grow up through that incredible organisation. I've visited Balroyal School and St. Lawrence School several times, talking about what a deputy does and helping with school council elections, because I believe in starting conversations about democracy with young people early. Being your deputy starts here, on the ground, in the parish. It is why I am seeking re-election. Serving as your deputy has been a genuine privilege. Over the last 4 years, I've worked with hundreds of residents on the issues that affect daily life, planning applications, road safety, healthcare, and social security challenges. When you contacted me, I listened and I acted. In the Assembly, I chaired the Environment, Housing and Infrastructure Scrutiny Panel, holding government to account on areas such as housing, tenancy law, planning policy, infrastructure works, and marine protection. As Assistant Minister, I chaired the Energy Policy Roundtable and helped deliver climate grants for islanders and businesses. As Vice Chair of the Machinery of Government panel, I pushed for greater transparency and accountability in how government operates. And I chair JAF, Jersey's youth homeless charity, because you cannot make good decisions from a comfortable bubble. You need to see what is actually happening with the most vulnerable in our community. My approach is simple: be accessible, be accountable, and deliver. But the work is not finished. Jersey faces real and pressing challenges, and islanders are feeling them. So my focus for the next term is clear: a resilient economy. We need responsible public finances, a clear energy strategy, support for small businesses, and we need stronger skills and apprenticeship pathways so young people can build their futures here rather than feel they have to leave. A sustainable Jersey. We need to deliver the next island plan with genuine affordable housing, to bring empty homes back into use, to protect our countryside coastline and biodiversity, and to support local food production and our farming community, and a fairer Jersey. We need sustainable healthcare financing so services stay accessible for everyone, real support for carers and families, including affordable childcare, stronger protections for young people online. I cannot deliver all of this alone, but I will champion every one of these priorities consistently and always with Long Islanders' long-term interests at heart, working across government, parishes, businesses, charities, because the best solutions for this island come from the whole island working together. What I'm asking for tonight is simple: the chance to continue the work with the same commitment and the same determination to ask the difficult questions and push for the right answers. You deserve a deputy who shows up, knows these parishes and does that detailed work. I believe I'm that deputy, and I'd be honoured to have your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Kirsten Morell.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming out this evening. I'm Kirsten Morell, and I'd like you to consider me for one of your 3 votes so I can continue working to make Jersey an island of opportunity for all islanders at every stage of our lives. An island of opportunity is one in which, regardless of age, we have the opportunity to live our lives to the fullest in the way that we want to. Nobody knows your dreams and ambitions like you do, so it's not for government to tell you how to live, but it is for government to enable you to live your dreams. I was born and brought up in St. Lawrence, and I continue to live here. Rural Jersey flows through my veins, and so I understand that Jersey has the foundations of a fantastic system that starts with the household and the family, moves into the parish community before flowing into the rest of the island. 4 years ago, we had no senators, so some deputies had to step up to bigger ministerial posts. I did that, and in my 4 years as Minister for Sustainable Economic Development, I worked tirelessly to deliver interventions that support and protect Jersey's economy in the long term. I have a strong record of delivery, including more flights to Europe, reduced red tape in the tourism sector, stimulating much-needed investment across Jersey's businesses, support for agriculture, and a refurbished opera house, to name just a few. In short, I have achieved a great deal more than just ferries, which was a Council of Ministers' decision taken to protect the island from a highly indebted company. Too often, we think of an economy being about money, but really it is about people, and how we work together to deliver our island's prosperity. I'm standing as deputy because I want to focus on the people of our 3 parishes and work with my fellow deputies and the connotabs to deliver crucial interventions that will make life better for us all. Every day, I see loneliness and isolation due to ill health or the loss of a spouse. I want to work with our parishes to create networks that will combat this. I want to see the island plan, which will be debated in the next term, deliver more communities like Clos de Sommier, Maison Le Vacant in St. John, or Maison Cabot in Trinity. By giving older people downsizing options that actually work, we can free up family homes without needing to build so many. Whether in government or scrutiny, I will continue to diversify Jersey's economy to create interesting career paths that will help our children and grandchildren choose Jersey for their future. I will continue to champion the turnaround of our agricultural sector that protects our rural landscapes and increases our food security with high-quality, locally grown food. I will keep working to develop closer links with Normandy and Brittany and the development of a southern supply chain that will mean less weather disruption and a wider range of food for Jersey. I will push for the reduction in red tape that government has built up over years, because government must enable our lives, not rule our lives. An enabling government is a caring government, and it's a government that reduces its own waste first before looking for us to pay more. Working for the long term is not easy, but I believe that by working across our parishes, we can overcome the challenges that we face and build a future that will inspire us all at every stage of our lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, you've heard what all the candidates have to say. Now it's time for you to ask them some questions. Lisa, our parish secretary in St. Lawrence, will be bringing the microphone round to anybody who wants to ask questions. Please tell us your name and confirm that you do live in the district when you stand up or sit down, whatever you choose. When phrasing your question, please bear in mind that every candidate needs to be able to answer the question, so no questions directed at just one candidate. If we have time, I can come back to people for a second question. We won't be taking questions from other election candidates or from current states members. And please keep your questions succinct and leave the speeches to the candidates. Okay, let's get started. Who wants to ask something? We've got somebody over there.
Hello, Deputies. My name is Verity O'Connell. I live in St Lawrence. I'm a parent of a child with special education needs, and I'd like to understand from each of the Deputies how you personally will support our children with additional needs, considering the struggles the schools are facing and the incredible wait times for things like CAMS and occupational therapy. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. So, how will you support parents of children with additional needs? First to answer that will be Phil.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch it. Is it Verity? Did you say right? Verity, thank you for your question. I have some third person experiences because my wife, who's in the audience, is a special educational needs, works in that, and also has worked in the ELSA area. So I do hear of the struggles that parents are having and that children are having. Also, I'm quite conscious that it feeds through from preschool, primary school, all the way through, and then in Highlands, and then workplace afterwards. So there are some really good facilities in the island that have been developed to support, but I think there's a lack of continuity. And I think if I was to be getting involved in the education system and then the longer term system support, I would be looking to make sure that continuity begins to gel and exist. Now, I've got a career in the charity sector, and I'm conscious of how many strengths there are in the charity sector, which to be some extent have been ignored to some degree by government. They're beginning to start accepting, and I think I'd be looking at using that sector to help people as widely as possible.
Thank you. Peter.
Verity, thank you for the question. I'm sure our son James won't mind me pointing out he's autistic, and so we have some experience of that. He's a magnificent human being and has done incredibly well, but there have been challenging times for him. And did he get the support he needed a lot of the time? I think probably not. I think he was seen as a problem that needed solving, but he shines brightly now. I think that we have to find a holistic approach, don't we? As soon as we identify a child with special educational needs, there has to be a holistic way of carrying them through their entire educational career. And I rather fear that many young people with needs literally drop off a cliff at some point, and the care stops dead, and the parents don't know what to do, and the young person doesn't know what to do. It's all about equality. It's all about how, in any society, we are judged by how we reach down and help people who need help to lift them up. Treat them with respect, treat them with love, treat them with care, and consider their entire lifespan. We need extra funding for everything. It should not be, and we might get around to that at some point or other. So I would love to be able to help, and maybe we can have a chat at some time.
Thank you. Hilary.
Thank you, Verity, for your question. I know that the Minister for Education has just done a review around SEND and special needs, and it didn't come out very well. And so it's really important that the next Education Minister really focuses on those recommendations and ensures that they are implemented as much as possible, and that the Education Minister fights for funding in the next budget to be able to implement those recommendations done by the independent person. I think it's really important that is really key, and it was a message to all of us. There needs to be better focus, and also that there's been too much pressure on teachers at schools who have been put on the burden of sorting out SEND and kind of collecting the problem together. And I think there really does need to be a review, like a look at how to make that more sustainable for teachers as well in the school themselves. Going further, I think for very special needs, we need to expand Montalabi, and that was something that we know there's been a field purchased. It was put back by the current government to build Montalabi, and so we need to make sure that that is a priority as one of the estates for the next school estates. Is Montalabi becomes the first priority to be able to build and expand that schools because they do an amazing work, and there does need to be more in that. And I hear on the doorsteps respite care. Respite care, I think I'm saying wrong. Respite care is really important for families as well,
Thank
and
you.
actually something that I think we need to look at as well.
Thank you. Kirsten.
Cheers. Thank you, Verity. If we talk about education, I think, and what I'm hearing on the doorsteps is we do need an overhaul in the education department. I think there's absolutely fantastic work going on in the schools. The teachers are doing superb work. Teaching assistants are doing really good work. But as one person said to me, there's not really any teaching assistants in secondary schools. That would be a help for a start as well. But it's clear that there is a disconnect between the experience of students and the experience of parents and the education department. I was actually stopped a couple of weeks ago as I was walking. I was knocking on doors, but this person wasn't someone whose door I knocked on. They pulled me aside and they spoke to me about their experience that the education department had given them and other parents of children with special educational needs. And it was a harrowing experience. And it was something that the education department, if correct, should not be acting in this way. So first of all, and I talked about this, we need a caring government. We need a government that doesn't close its ears when people come to it and say this part isn't working. That's really fundamentally important. Special educational needs, it's clear, we need funding in that area. I think everything that was just said about Montelabe is absolutely correct. But as with anything, special educational needs come across a spectrum. And so some people can be in schools, regular primary schools. Some people need something much tighter. I went to Belroyal School. It was wonderful that I grew up with people with other abilities, and that is something that shapes me. And I think that's wonderful, but not everybody can be in that. So we do need Montelabe Online. We do need funding, and we do need greater provision for teaching and teaching assistants. Thank you.
Thank you for those answers. Who's next to ask a question? Gentleman here. And then we'll come to you over there next.
My name is Frederick and I come from Trinity. The previous government, in order to create a level playing field, introduced the community cost bonus. That enabled people who owned their own house but had small incomes or small pensions to also get a bite from the cherry. That brought them parallel to the people on income support. The present government, apart from widening the eligibility, has not increased the community cost bonus. The community cost bonus is an essential part. My late mother, who owned her own house, she said, you can't go to the baker with a pentile and buy a loaf of bread. So what are the candidates intending to do? Do they, first of all, agree with me? And what are they intending to do about the community cost bonus? Thank you.
So do you agree that it should go up, and what are you intending to do about it? Peter first.
Frederick, thank you for that question. It seems to me that a lot of the care that is wrapped around islanders is simply not keeping pace with the state of the economy at all. Long-term care is one. The bonus that you're talking about is another. It's like we solve the problem several years ago and then forget about it. And it doesn't keep pace with people's lives. It's almost like, forgive me if there are any accountants in the room, but there are accountants running the emotional intelligence of the island, and that's not working. We need people who understand your lived experience. You're an expert on your life. We should be talking to you about your problems and how we can help solve them. I intend, if elected, to something called Team Mac, and anybody can be on it. If I can talk to them, ask them what they want and what they need, and then put them in front of the people who have the answers, we can actually just maybe solve the problems together, because I firmly believe that we must be inclusive. Yes, I would fully support the raising of that bonus, because again, you can't spend money on the bricks in your house. You could be struggling in a very nice house, but you need to be able to spend the money on your life. You should be honoured in that respect.
Thank you. Hilary.
Thank you, and thank you, Frederick, for the question. And I know we've worked together on the community cost bonus because you came to me to see how I can work with this and the current social security minister, and it felt very difficult in that sense to see that there was going to be any expansion or the threshold going up. But I absolutely agree with you. I think especially now when we're seeing energy costs rising again, and we will continue to see that, which has a knock-on effect, of course, with food and with other costs. And what we've talked about, of course, is the asset. You may be asset rich, but cash poor. And that's really important because I have knocked on many doors, and this does keep coming up. And as you've raised, this current community cost bonus doesn't fill that gap. And so it's really something that we do need to talk with whoever the new social security minister is to look at the threshold and have that increase, especially now with such a big jump in the cost of living. We know interest rates will probably come soon as well, a big jump. So it's something that I totally agree with you, and I will continue working with you on it, Frederick. Thank you.
Thank you. Kirsten.
Thank you, Frederick. One of the good things about Jersey is that we have a social security fund that is in really good health. And so when it comes to pensions and a community cost bonus, it is something that we can review. It doesn't affect government's revenue and the government's revenue spending in that respect. And so we need to use the social security fund. Just today, I was speaking to a former farmer who was talking about the difficulty of living on a pension, particularly when it's, obviously any pension is fixed income. And the cost of living is rising. And whilst the pension is refixed every year, it goes up once a year with the cost of living, that the cost of living is outpacing it. So there's no question we need to re-peg both the pension and the community cost bonus to the realistic cost of living that we have today. And the Social Security Fund is in a state to be able to do that. So similarly, I think this is something that we absolutely need to get to grips with. We know that there are people in Jersey, 25% of pensioners live below the poverty line. That's absolutely shocking. Pensioners in Jersey, some of them are the most wealthy of us, but as you can tell from that stat, some of them are also among the poorest of us. And when you only have a single state income, we as government and the State's Assembly have to honour the fact that we need to make sure it keeps pace. And the Social Security Fund can and is fit enough to be able to do that, so we must. Thank you.
Thank you. Phil.
Frederick, thank you very much for your question. The simple answer is yes, we should make sure it goes up, and actually should keep pace with costs. There have been a pretty extraordinary few years, actually, with inflation because of circumstances outside of Jersey's direct control. But without a doubt, some of the impacts that are feeding into cost of living are controllable by Jersey, and this is one of them. On a second point, a wider point, I think this is actually a classic example of where government function is not functioning properly. Is where there seems to have been a lot of short-termist in thinking, ideas have come up, something's put in place that works and helps, and then the government moves on and it's forgotten, and what you've described seems a good example of that. And I think we see too much of that coming out of our government through the last 3 or 4 terms, and we need to deal with more cohesive long-term thinking about how we can make everyone's experience of life in Jersey better. And there are projects that started outside government, but government has a great role to play in this, but actually should act to enable and empower organisations outside itself to actually achieve some of these solutions.
Thank you. Next question was over there. Sam, if you could put your hand up again. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Faye from Trinity. And my question is, what do you think about employing UK consultants? Because it seems to me that they're still wasting a lot of money when we have a lot of consultancy firms in Jersey. And I just worry that all these UK consultants seem to want to turn Jersey into a mini Brighton. I love Jersey, and I don't want to be like the UK. So I'd just like to know your comment.
Thank you. So what do you think about government employing UK consultants? Hilary.
Thank you, and thank you, Faye, for your question. I absolutely agree. I think it's really important that we look at Jersey first for many issues, whether it is having expertise to bring in for a specific area that we need in government for a particular moment in time, or wider when we're looking at teachers or nurses or healthcare professionals. We need to see if we can get Jersey first, and whether we have our young people who've gone away to university to study these kind of to entice them back. So I think it's really important that we do that. So on the UK consultants, I think it's very important. I have to put a little caveat on there that there are some times, and when I was scrutiny chair, especially for infrastructure, there are some occasions where you would need to get UK consultants in to look specifically at really technical issues around, I can't think of anything now because we don't have bridges, for example, so that's not a good one that's come to my mind. But very specific areas, we do have to bring in UK consultants because we don't have the expertise. What we need is to make sure the tendering process is open and it starts in Jersey first, and when there isn't the expertise here, then we go out. What happens now is it goes out to the UK first, and sometimes our experts don't even hear and don't even see that those roles are being tendered for, and that is wrong, and that needs to change. So it's about the procurement process, ensuring that the value stays on Ireland first before going off if we don't have the expertise here.
Kirsten.
I'm going to sound very similar because I couldn't agree more. It is that simple, Faye. Jersey, it was the chief executive who recently said Jersey needs to remind itself that it's a small island and not a big nation. And I think in that situation, he was really talking about the red tape and the regulation that Jersey has brought into itself. And one of the reasons we have that regulation and that red tape, one of the reasons it's difficult when you're trying to talk about the community cost bonus or special educational needs and you're just getting nowhere in government, is because you have people who have been there and they've been trained via the UK way of thinking, a very big government way of thinking. And it means that Jersey has lost its ability to be nimble. It's lost its ability to be agile. It's lost its sense of being Jersey. And UK consultants, and I must say, UK consultants is absolutely a part of that. As Hilary was just saying, there are times when we do need outside consultants. There's no question, particularly special areas, technical areas. But again, I would say, why the UK? Why not Europe? Why not France? Why not Norway? Why not Denmark? Why not Germany? They have all sorts of different ways of looking at things. They have people who are just as capable as people in the UK, but often they have a different perspective on it. And it's the fact that we always go to the same place that I find really difficult. Jersey can choose where it gets its expertise from. And I will always champion the idea that we get expertise first on island, and then if the expertise is not here, then look around the world. Don't just tie ourselves to one place. We have the freedom, and we should have the strength to say, no, we can get our expertise from where we want to. Thank you.
Phil.
So, Faye, thank you for the question. So, start with a bit of personal experience. 3 years ago, I was involved in setting up something called Policy Centre Jersey with Sir Mark Bullier. And the purpose of that organisation was to establish in Jersey a group of experts that would draw from the Jersey community and then be able to feed into some of the serious decisions that were being made. Now, it has taken a little while for that to be recognised, but I think Alan's here today and we'll agree that actually the recognition is now there. So actually Jersey already now has the ability and the starting point of having a consultancy organisation that can feed into the government a Jersey viewpoint. It may use some external consultants to help enrich that viewpoint, but it does already exist. The government just needs to start using the facilities it has. Now, I will caveat the point about foreign consultants, to pick up on Kirsten's point. We shouldn't just look at Britain, we should look much wider. But there are huge economic opportunities for Jersey which need to be grabbed during the next 4 years. And the reality is we may well be able to train our own into these new economic areas, but we will need to use external expertise to get them going.
Thank you. Peter.
Thank you again for the question, Faye. it is interesting. It goes back to that fear of making decisions, fear of getting it wrong, and therefore getting it wrong question that very often, I believe, this island says, oh, what shall we do? I know, we'll hire in a very expensive consultant. They'll tell us what to do. We pay them hundreds of thousands of pounds and then don't take them up on their advice. And that has happened so many times. We have a level of skill on this island in many respects which is quite extraordinary. It is untapped. We have a telecom firm, and yet you can bet we ask telecom consultants from outside to give us advice. We run ports, but you can bet we bring in consultants to give us advice about that. It is ridiculous that we do not use our island expertise more. And of course, there are very specialist things that we do need some outside advice on, but we really do have to be careful with the pounds we spend on them, because every pound that we spend on a consultant is a pound that you got up early to earn. You had to go into work, you had to put in the effort. It's your money, and people in government sometimes forget that. It's my intention to never forget that. So, yes, it needs much more careful and much more close checking at every occasion.
Thank you. Next question. Oh, I've got two. We'll go to that. Is that somebody different, or is that the same person as before?
Same person.
I'll come back to second questions after everybody else has had a go. So we'll have these two ladies at the front, one then the other.
Hi, Morgan from St Lawrence. So my question is around housing affordability is a major concern for young people across the district. What specific steps would you take to help first-time buyers get onto the property ladder in Jersey, and do you believe enough is being done to deliver affordable housing in rural parishes like ours?
First to answer this is Kirsten.
Thank you, Morgan. I think we all know in Jersey that housing is one of the things that's driving our young people away from Jersey. We need to address it. We have failed to. The last island plan debate, it ended up not even close to enough housing being provided. So we need to start with the supply and demand element. We need to provide more housing. One of the things I'm really strongly saying that's being well received on the doors, is that actually rather than building family housing and that first-time buyer housing, we actually also need to look at the other end of the spectrum. We have a lot of people who are living on their own in family homes, and we are not providing housing for them to downsize into. This is a massive problem in Jersey. I'm not saying that anyone should be forced or feel that they have to leave their homes, but what we need to do is get a flow going, because we have a lot of family homes that are being underused in Jersey, but we're not providing anyone else with the housing they need to move forward. So that's one of the things I think we really need to do. Another thing we need to do is lean on the banks. The banks in Jersey, I am sorry, are not serving this island properly. They are not providing the mortgages at the rates we need. There were recent reports about a year ago. There were reports about the fact that the banks in Jersey add a premium to their mortgage interest. That's wrong. And I think when we talk about mortgage interest, I also think we need to look at the fact that we should be maintaining the mortgage interest tax relief for residents. Not for landlords, but for residents. It's really important that the tax department keep that in there. Thank you.
Phil.
Morgan, thank you for your question. I think Kirsten's picked up some really relevant points, but one of the critical issues, and I've heard it playing out on a number of other conversations, is that the island plan that's now been in place for quite some time has acted to do what it was intended to, protect green space, etc., but really has failed in a lot of other areas, and housing is undoubtedly one of them. We've had a plan that's really pushed housing into St Helier and the already built up areas. I think at the St Bellard's hustings they were talking about it, St Bellard's becoming the second town and all that kind of stuff, which wasn't very popular there either, surprisingly. So I think the parishes do need to look at their provision. I also agree with Kirsten. We've got the same tie and shirt on, so we obviously in the same team. It's a bit weird. But actually, I also agree that actually one of the interesting areas we need to look at as an island is the other end of the age group and downsizing, and looking at introducing some intergenerational housing, which is much better for people, it's much better for life experience. it helps people live better quality lives, and to provide something interesting for people to downsize into and then free up their homes. And maybe something like Andium can help that downsizing by coming up with schemes around enabling people to go. But that is a much longer question, which I'm not going to go into now.
Thank you. Peter.
Morgan, brownfield sites, ugly places are everywhere. We need to look at those. We need to sort out this blasted greenhouse situation that we're struggling with, because we could build homes there. We can beautify our country by building excellent homes. How about we look at those empty homes which are everywhere? You know one near you, and it's been sitting there for years. How can we incentivize the owner of that home by maybe helping them with a grant to improve it, or maybe fining them if they're steadfastly not going to do it? How about, to encourage young people to come back from university, we say give them their first 3 years income tax for free, but no, they don't get to not pay it. They stick it in a fund, which then goes towards a deposit on their first property here. And then what you do is you take on an initiative called Blocks, which is a New Zealand initiative, I believe, where you incrementally buy your home block by block. So you do have a stake in it. You're not trying to eat away at the interest up front. We've got to look at doing it differently now. We've been doing it the same way again and again. Let's use our imaginations.
Thank you. Hilary.
Thank you, Morgan, for your question. I agree with most that's been said, so I want to focus on the fact that actually in the Bridging Island plan, there are some rezone sites that still haven't been built on. And why they haven't been built on, and I went to an Andium briefing the other day, and they're not planning any time soon to build on them because it's too expensive. And so even though we're talking about there's going to be a new island plan, the planning process is too difficult, we've got an issue in that we actually have rezoned fields ready for affordable housing for our youngsters. But because it's too expensive, the land was bought too expensively from the beginning, which means that its knock-on effect, and of course because of the situation that we've had the last few years since the Bridging Island plan was constructed, costs have increased, and so it's just too expensive. So Andium has confirmed that they're not going to be building those anytime soon. So we can rezone as much as we like, but if Andium's not going to do it now, what are they going to be doing to the ones that we want to carry on and rezone? So I think that is one thing we really have to work on and understand from Andium, how we can support them to build those houses in the right way, and the developers and the construction industry. I'm sure there was an amendment in the budget for the housing minister to look at empty homes in the latest budget, and so when we go, if I'm elected, when we get back in, there will be supposedly some policy development around empty homes, so we can put proposals on the table to ensure that empty homes are looked at as well. Thank you.
Next question.
Hi, I'm Abby from St Lawrence. As we know, Jersey is a leading international finance centre, but as global capital shifts towards more sustainable investment, staying ahead of this isn't just an ethical choice, it's a competitive necessity. So my question is, does Jersey's Sustainable Finance Action Plan go far enough? And what specific steps would you take as a States member to keep Jersey competitive and credible as a sustainable finance hub? Thank you.
Thank you. First to answer this one is Phil.
Okay, so there's been some work around in modernising the finance industry, I think is the phrase, and making it more competitive. And I think that is something that, with the history of the last 3 decades, obviously finance has become a core base of our sustainability as an island, to be honest. Now, how we can improve what the finance industry does with their business model is a question that I think needs to be focused on. My interest for our economy, though, is that we are going to need to diversify as much as we can away from the finance industry, keeping and protecting and helping it grow, but actually begin to look at other areas that can be done and brought to the island. Now, there are some particular skills and unique selling points that the island already has in place because of the finance industry, as a direct result of it, actually, which can allow and it is having interest shown into it, into the island's economy. So I think my interest will probably be more in diversing the economy away from finance to give people different jobs to do, different expertise, and actually give us a different base for our tax income to support Ireland in the future.
Thank you. Peter.
Abby, we do have all our eggs in one basket, and we're just going to have to look after that basket very carefully, but we do, and I'm sure all the candidates will say, need to diversify. It's very important. Now, we have to protect our finance industry. A vast amount of the income tax, directly or indirectly, comes from the finance industry. So it is vital that we wrap it in bubble wrap. We had a meeting with several finance people fairly recently, and it has become apparent that we are sliding on the world rankings. We've done very well. For an island our size, we do very well indeed. In fact, the amount of funds on this island, I think the figure was in the trillions, which is like how big is the universe kind of figure. You can't quite wrap your head around it. However, we are vulnerable. A lot of jurisdictions are catching up and going beyond us, so we must be very, very careful indeed. So how would I support it? Well, I talk to the experts. I talk to people who have a stake in this. I talk to people who understand it, because I'm no bean counter, I'm afraid. I'm a big picture person, but you ask the experts, of which there are many, many, many over here. You could even be one, Abby. You could be, couldn't you? I'd have a chat with you. But yeah, we must protect the finance industry and diversify as well.
Thank you. Hilary.
Thank you. And thank you, Ali, for the question. And it's something that I've worked on before I was elected in 2022. And so I took that into my manifesto in 2022. And I've been working very hard to ensure that the action plan was indeed published and was strong enough for us to start to implement it. Unfortunately, we fell behind because it was late in being published. We've fallen behind a number of jurisdictions, which means we're not as competitive as we could be in this space. And so it's really important that we catch up and ensure that action plan stays on track. You asked, so when you said, is it far enough? I mean, for me personally, there could have been done more, but I understand that we need to, keep pace in the way Jersey knows how with the rest of the world in this space. We can't strike ahead. We need to just keep going. What's really important is that we continue to make sure sustainable finance is always on the political agenda. It's in the discussions around the finance industry itself, and those people who work really well in that space in Jersey continue to highlight how important it is. I think one of the basics that is being worked on now is environmental crime. So any finance that has been found to have committed environmental crime around the world, that is linked back, and that is given a serious consideration, and there is serious consequences, as is with anti-money laundering. It will be treated exactly the same. For me, that is the basics. Do no harm. Finance should do no harm.
Kirsten.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a very good question, because I've mentioned in previous hustings, sustainability seems to have fallen off the agenda somewhat, and it's very different to 2022. And we've seen that it's happening across the world. And but wrapping our finance industry in bubble wrap isn't the answer. Our finance industry is an international industry. It has to compete with the best and the biggest of the jurisdictions around the world. Therefore, we have to make sure it is fit to compete, and bubble wrap doesn't do that. Bubble wrap does the opposite. It keeps it and makes it feel comfortable. It makes it feel that, and this can happen in Jersey, we're an island. It feels like we're away from everybody else, but our finance industry is competing against the best and the biggest. From a sustainable finance perspective, it really talks to the younger generations of wealthy people in this world. And so we need to make sure that we are developing this sustainable finance, putting the action plan back in action, bringing a lead, because we lost the sustainable finance lead in government. So we need to bring them back into government so that we can push that forward. Because if we don't, we will lose the younger generation of wealthy people. It's that simple. And we can't do that. From finance in general, we need to make sure that government learns to speak to business. It's not good at doing that. I've learned that the hard way these last 4 years. We need to make sure that our regulatory environment passes Moneyval, but at the same time is fit for purpose, i.e. it's not over-regulated. These are just some of the things we need to do. But the Time to Win document is a great start. Thank you.
Okay, another question. So we'll go to this gentleman first. And was there somebody, is that 3 people over there? You're all first questions, are you? We'll come over there after this gentleman on this side.
Hello, David Price, born, bred, lived in St Lawrence all my life. It's a general question. Where do you stand with regard to...
Could you put the mic a little bit closer so that we can hear you? Thank you.
Pardon. Where do you stand in regard to allowing bigger businesses, i.e. from the UK, France, wherever, buying a local brand, using their power and collateral then to basically crush the small local businesses that may be competing against them? I use a historic example of when JPMO ceased to exist and was then the potato industry sold out to Bartlett Brothers, etc., which caused the closing of farms all around the island almost overnight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Peter.
David, it is appalling, isn't it? To build our own economy, we should be sustainably farming, we should be eating our own food, we should be selling our own food, we should be putting our own food into schools, into hospitals, food that is grown here, and yet a large company has come in and torn the very heart out of an industry, and that is appalling. Any business that wishes to move to Jersey has to pass the Jersey filter, and forgive me, I shall find that. The Jersey filter is this. Does it genuinely improve life for ordinary islanders, strengthen Jersey long-term, reduce bureaucracy and friction? Does it also fair? Is it fair in real life and not just on paper? Does it deliver value for money, protect Jersey's identity while preparing it for the future? Connect positively to other parts of island life and make Jersey more resilient, hopeful and sustainable. From what you've said, I'd say that this does none of the above. Everything this island ever has to do, in my world, has to pass those filters. So I don't like it at all. I think we'll need the outside sometimes, obviously, but not to strip out our assets of our beautiful island.
Thank you. Hilary.
Yes, thank you, David, for that question. And specifically on your example, I think it was outrageous that happened. I think it has absolutely changed Jersey's landscape and our farming community for the worse. And it should have been, our potatoes should have been protected. And I think that there needs to be lessons learned on that for any other industry. And therefore, I think that there needs to be more power given to the Jersey Competition Authority, the JSRA, for example, to be able to just to put a stop before these deals are made, to be able to look at to see what is actually going on, who is actually in the deals that are happening, and what does that go looking forward, not only for jobs but also for local businesses, because there was a huge knock-on effect with that situation that you've talked about the potatoes. So we do need to have some kind of protection round, and I think the JCRA is the right place to do that. Thank you.
Kirsten.
Thank you, David. I think the history is slightly wider and different as well, because we also, with potatoes, we also had a local Jersey businessman, farmer, bought up lots of local farms, created the Jersey Rural Company, and then sold that to a private equity firm. We also had, at the same time, Bartlett's come in and buy the Jersey Rural Company as well. And so there is a kind of combination of things that happen here. It all depends on the business sector. Some business sectors need protecting. Some business sectors need to be facing sharp competition. And so it really does depend. There are some areas, and I would say that our hotel sector is one of them. We've got some fantastic hotels in Jersey, but we also have hotels which are not quite where they would be in comparison to hotels that you find overseas. So in this case, I think, for instance, in the hotel area, we do need international competition to come in to show Jersey what it is that international five-star hotels and so on are like. But it all depends. I just spoke earlier about the finance industry. The finance industry needs to be competing all the time. So it needs to be kept on its toes. Otherwise, it will fall behind. So there are some realities around business which do mean that we need to keep them sharp. In potatoes, again, there are some fantastic local growers who I have been supporting to start marketing their products, potato products, outside the island into Europe and elsewhere. So where one door closes, opportunity is always there, and I believe that, and we must support people to find those opportunities outside the island.
Phil.
Yeah, David, thank you for your question. Two elements of my own personal life experience to set the context here. So my father was a small-holding farmer. So I grew up in the kind of farm that was the fabric of Jersey. So we had cattle and new royals, etc., as well as many other crops. He saw with the arrival of the EEC and the damage that relationship that Britain formed with Europe was going to do to Jersey's farmers, because there's simply no scale in Jersey to take on the big farms that the French had, etc. And so when he talked to me, that was some of the advice he gave was look for something to do. I'll support you in farming, but if there's something else you want to do, there's going to be trouble ahead, right? And that was his prediction at the time. Now, I also ran a pharmacy business which was locally based. It did expand and take over a bit of Guernsey, so that was a good thing. But actually, we were always in competition with Boots and Lloyd's, so those challenges were there. And so there is an element that there is a commercial reality here, and people who are running the businesses locally have to make decisions about how they behave. What I see also in Jersey is there are some new industries coming along that Jersey can lead on and can export. And so rather than just protecting what we've got, I think we should be looking at what we can do in the future and how we can support local businesses to grow on the island and expand outwards.
Thank you. Now, I saw 3 hands up over in that corner. Assuming all of them are first questions, do you want to just choose one of those and we'll go through those 3?
Hello, I'm Helen, I'm from Trinity. One of the senatorial candidates has raised the issue of care of the elderly residents and the lack of care homes with spaces for respite care. Whilst it was very valid that they've brought up the elderly, there's also a huge gap in the care of young islanders and defaulting back to their families as well in negligible respite care. There are young families in Jersey who have little or no support and few or no wider family to assist them. They've got disabled children, sick children with levels of care which they have to deal with on a daily basis with no backup and no breaks. Now, in addition to this, there seems to be a very skewed application of who gets any help that might be available to those who need it. And some of the most vulnerable people are often overlooked. Family nursing have got very limited resources and do what they can, but it's just not enough. And I think families and family nursing need more support. So I'd like to ask the candidates 2 things. Firstly, how aware are they to the total lack of respite care for the young and the children of these families? And secondly, what would they hopefully like to see or put in place to rectify this and alleviate the stress that these families have to live with every day?
Thank you. Hilary.
Thank you, Helen. And we've talked about this on the doorstep in length when I came and knocked on your door the other day. I think, so I am aware But I thank you for raising that, because it's something that we haven't really talked about in the last 4 years in this assembly, State Assembly. Maybe the ministers know about it and the council ministers, but for us, we haven't really talked about it. And so I think it's really important that we put it back on the agenda. I already mentioned it in an answer for an earlier question. So I think it's really important that we do this, because it has come up not just with you, Helen, but with others as well on the door. I think it really is a disservice to those families to not have respite care when they need it the most, to be able to support their loved ones and have that kind of well-being for themselves as well. What can we do? I think it's really important that the government works with charities in this space to deliver services for them. Charities know better than governments probably in this space. We have amazing charities in Jersey, and it's really important that the government then commissions correctly for the charities. Unfortunately, there's been examples in the past where commission services has been pulled last minute, funding has been pulled last minute for charities, and this means that these support and care for charities has suddenly disappears, and for islanders then it's disappeared. So it's really important that we have multi-year financing for charities, and we have proper commissioning services, so that you can see in the future what's coming, what services you need, and that's specifically for respite care. Thank you.
Kirsten.
Thank you. It's a really important question, and it comes to the heart of why I want to run as deputy. It's because I want to get back into the parish, because there are things which the government and the island have not been dealing with, despite the fact that we know we have a population which is ageing. And I think also talking about respite care for parents of children, I think is really important, because that's something that's easily forgotten. We have known for decades that we have an ageing population. We have done so little about it. And I see this. It hits me hard. I've done 3 elections now, and I've gone to houses where I've seen that family change over those 3 elections. People have been lost, people have become ill, and the carers, to a person, have become exhausted. It cannot go on. And I agree, it is the third sector, the charity sector, which is best positioned to help us with this. But what government needs to do is provide the funding for it. And Hilary talked about commissioning over periods of time, 3, 4, 5-year commissioning, so that charities can deliver over a long period of time. They know they have the funding, and that they know that they will be able to continue to deliver these services over a period. Too often, government has been giving one-year opportunities for funding. I'm a director of Brighter Futures. I know how that stops us or hinders us delivering services, and we have to work around that. So I think commissioning, using the charitable sector, and actually providing the funding that we need to give those people a break, because all of us here will have cared for people at some time, and it takes its toll, and we must stop it taking its toll.
Phil.
Helen, thank you for the question. I probably have a bit of an advantage here, as I'm the chairman of Family Nursing and Home Care. So I do have regular conversations about that organisation, obviously, and what impact it has. Now, it does deliver nursing services from pre-birth right through to end of life. And actually, the support it's had from the government has been complex, let's call it that. It's in a much better place now, and Kirsten's referred to a long-term solution. But it does now have the ability to start expanding what it's doing and reaching into areas that previously it hadn't done before. And I think this applies across the charity sector and how we can actually have an impact. I was talking to, when I was around earlier, someone who's a young person, well, my age actually, so I used to know him when I was a kid, so he's a young person, that's right, who's just had to give up their job to look after his wife, and that is going to be through someone who's got a condition that needs to. So there's going to be a load of impact, and my advice to him was to make sure he does things for himself as well, because that can really get lost. I think I'm going to mirror what Kirsten said. I also run a social enterprise called Call and Check that checks in and looks after people who are lonely and isolated, and we do look after people who are younger. I think these kind of organisations exist. Government should be enabling them and helping them do what they're really, really good at.
Peter.
Helen, yes. Our son James was involved with the JET, with Jersey Employment Trust. And you may have called him, he spoke very eloquently on the BBC about how much they'd supported him, and we were very proud of him. So my point is, what happened to JET, as an example, was appalling. I mean, absolutely appalling, and everybody should be very embarrassed about how they were treated. My point being, the third sector, if we didn't have these charitable organisations, then we, as an island, would be in huge trouble. Can you imagine the government trying to pick up the cost of what these people do for a minimal amount of money a lot of the time? They do it from the heart. My point is, if we support our third sector well, then there is a chance that we can get decent respite for everybody who cares for anybody, no matter what age. And you're right, older islanders being looked after by, say, their children is noticed, but the children themselves, young people who will require care for a lot longer in their life, must be looked at. We must care for everybody. Again, a bit like Verity's point earlier, we must reach down and help everybody up to live an equitable and good life. And these people are looking after people society cannot afford to and hasn't got the time to. We must support them with more respite care, and that should and must be looked at by the next Assembly.
Thank you. So, next question. One of the people over there, and then we'll come to you after they're done.
Hi, Emma from St. Lawrence. So I just wanted to ask each of you if you agree that we are way too reliant on the UK for food and goods supply. And if you agree, what would you practically do to change that and open up supply with France and, the rest of Europe?
Thank you. Should we get supply from France and the rest of Europe? First answer, this is Kirsten.
Brilliant. Thank you, Emma. If you've had the joy of reading my manifesto, you'll see that in the manifesto I speak exactly to this point. There is no question in my mind. Jersey has, and actually there's a video I've got out about it as well, Jersey has put itself in a really silly position. We have really tense supply chains to the UK. We buy everything from the UK. It's 120 miles away, it's often rough water, it's always incredibly busy water, and yet we've got St. Malo and the whole of Europe 40 miles away, and we ignore it. We bring almost nothing in from there. Now, I accept that it's not in the gift of government to suddenly start buying goods and selling them, but we must encourage this to happen, and I've been plugging away at this for the last 4 years, and I will continue to do so. Phil mentioned earlier the value Jersey, talk about the supermarket. Well, a supermarket, I've spent the last 4 years, 2 years ago, we came incredibly close to a French supermarket buying land in Jersey and opening up in Jersey. And it was uncertainty around planning which stopped them and made them pull out. That's where government can get in and make sure there is no uncertainty around planning. But if we are to have a supermarket in Jersey, it shouldn't be, and this is what government must do, it shouldn't be one that uses the northern supply chain. If we do attract a supermarket to Jersey, it must, and government should make this a condition, it must use the southern supply chain. There, we will get resilience as well as different quality food and different priced food as well. Thank you.
Phil.
Emma, thank you very much for your question. It's vital. The answer is to making sure we have food resilience on the island. Now, there is only going to be a limit to what we can do on island, to be honest, with a population of over 100,000 people, but we can certainly invest in people on the island to help people build more sustainable, locally grown food offerings. So I was talking to Ollie Grigg, who set up a Lomar farm not far from my old house in St. John last week, actually, and how well he's doing, and he's looking for a barn, etc., to move to. I'd really like to support that. I think the island could support the scoop concept and really try and drive that. What I'm really interested in, as I referred to earlier, is trying to help the government becoming an enabler to help people on this island who want to do things, to do them, rather than being a blocker and putting things that prevent local islanders from coming on. Now, I'm also I remember being able to go over to France and buy stuff and come back. The idea of having a French low-cost supermarket on Jersey is fantastic to me. I'd love to see it. I know that there are hurdles to do with the outcome of Brexit that we need to get past, and food labelling, but I think that probably there's elements of that are in the gift of the government. So although with the Value Jersey programme I'm supporting the work with Lidl and Aldi to help to bring competition into the market, I am equally happy for it to be someone from France.
Thank you.
I'm not fussy on that thing. Okay.
Peter.
Emma, Protocol 3. We had, when we had Protocol 3, a relationship with Europe. Goods moved more freely, the economies were more matched. Brexit happened and we lost a huge amount of our ability to move goods from France, make it much more awkward. Moving forward, to help solve the problem, I believe that the next government should and must maybe negotiate Protocol 3 version 2.0, where we, as an autonomous parliament, should be able to talk to both Europe and the UK so we can open the doors to trade. We could effectively get our bread buttered both sides. Kirsten's quite right. We're dragging a ridiculous amount of, we'll call it sea miles, our goods, over very unreliable seas when Somalia just over there. If we could actually, as an island, negotiate a better relationship with our neighbours. I'm a quarter French. I can see them from the coast of our island. I've fortunately lived in a couple of places where you can see them over there, and yet we have a blockage to them. We should encourage more goods from Europe to arrive more easily with less duties on them, and of course look after our own food economy. So create diversity in our economy on the food front, and a better relationship with Europe in general would be a great bonus for this island.
Thank you. Hilary.
Thank you, Emma, for your question. And like the other candidates, absolutely, I think it's vital that we try to ensure that we have food resilience, and that is by looking at other supply chains, especially in Europe and in France. And Kirsten has said that there already was plans to do this, and there were some hurdles that had to be overtaken, and we can then ensure in the next island plan that these hurdles are taken away so that we can potentially invite back those that are interested. It's also important to support local growers and ensure that whichever supermarket is able to come and we have that supply chain, they also embrace our local suppliers as well and have that availability in whichever supermarket is here or whichever shop comes from the south, because I think it's really important that we also see that because we're at the end of the chain of from the UK, we also don't get the best quality of products. I see that all the time when you go to France and you visit supermarkets there. We are not getting the best tomatoes, we're not getting the best vegetables, not from local, but from the supply chain in the UK. So we need to ensure that we are getting the best quality as well for our islanders, and also support local grown. But it's not just for food. I think it's really important, for example, looking at healthcare. I heard that St Malo has a very good hospital that specialises in heart surgery and heart specialists, and they even have tried to get hold of Jersey to say, let's have a partnership, let's have a relationship, and they got no reply. Why can we not? You know, we can, if we can, if, thank you.
So do we have another question from somebody else over there? And then we're going to come to this gentleman at the front.
Sheila Boda, I'm a parishioner of St Lawrence.
Bit closer.
Everybody says that there's a jewel in the crown in St Helier. It's dull. It has gone. 2-3 years ago, we were promised £15 million to be spent on the markets. I doubt if £15 has been spent. We've now got Fort Regent, and now we've got Springfield to come. When is money going to be spent on the markets? We're all investing money in the market as traders, but we're getting nothing back. We're getting no help from anybody at all, property holdings or from anybody. What are your thoughts on what can be done for the markets?
Thank you. Phil. What can we do about the markets?
Yep, okay. Sheila, thank you for your question. Specifically about the markets, as I gather, or St Helier, because I would personally take my answer slightly wider than the markets. We all use St Helier. St Helier, when I was a youngster, was a vibrant place, and it was just great fun. You could go out, you could go to a different place every night of the week. I used to live in St Helier, and we used to wander in. It has lost that je ne sais quoi that just made it absolutely a fantastic place. I think what you're experiencing in the market is an element of that. The lack of investment and constructive development within St Helier to make it a vibrant place, make people want to go, make it a destination place, a place to go to, has really impacted on the town over the last, decade or so, maybe 2 decades. I've always felt the market had the potential to be a nexus for that, to really start building something from that. How we do it, I'm not sure. I thought the leases for the markets were held by the parish rather than the government. So I might be wrong on that. I'm not. I'd need clarification on that. But what I would like to do is part of a concerted effort to bring some of that excitement and vibrancy back in St Helier is to use the markets as a central point to build from.
Thank you. Peter.
Sheila, I'm old enough to remember when I was a boy, you had to cling to the pavements down King Street without falling in front of cars when they used to drive along there. And St Helier was a vibrant place. I rather fear that there are a few vanity projects happening now in our capital city. And the market used to be quite an amazing place once upon a time. And you're right, it seems to have lost its feel. As for what can be done about it, as for where the funding could come from, I'm not sure. I'll always tell you straight, I don't necessarily have the answer. But again, I think it's very important that any politician should say, I don't necessarily have the answer, but I can find somebody who does, and let's put everybody together to talk about it. So if you have any ideas as to how it can be improved, I'd love to talk to you. I would love to talk to anybody who knows, because guess what? Everybody up here, we're just people. We're out to represent you, and we do not have all the answers, but it is very important that we are prepared to go and seek the answers to those questions. Yes, wouldn't it be wonderful if the market had that fizz about it again? So if I can help, if I can get in, I certainly will do.
Thank you. Hilary.
Thank you, and thank you, Sheila, for your question. And there has been a lot of strategies written that highlights the importance of St Helier, the visitor economy strategy. I believe there's one specifically for the economy of St Helier, and it's really important that they actually are implemented. There's actually money put so that the words on the papers can actually be put into practice, because I think that's where the gap is. And unfortunately, I think we've had priorities shifted and changed because we've had 2 governments in this political term. And so that means that when there was money put forward to the market and focus to really shine on make the market that jewel in the crown, as you said, that was then pushed back and changed the money to be put elsewhere. And it's something that our scrutiny panel looked at from infrastructure and asked these questions of the infrastructure minister why this money was being put elsewhere. And I think it's a real shame. You mentioned specifically about JPH, Jersey Property Holdings. It's really important that we look at them as a landlord and how their relationship with the tenant. I don't think it's working at the moment. I hear lots of different stories. We try to review this in the scrutiny panel. We just started getting evidence. I think we need more evidence building, whoever's in that scrutiny panel again, because it's not working, and it's also different tenants have different contracts, pay different, have different terms, and that's not fair for businesses, and it's not fair for those who have to deal with JPH. So that's specifically, I know you said JPH, so we need to look at JPH's relationship with their tenants.
Kirsten.
Thank you, Sheila. Now, Sheila, you and I have talked about this many, many times. I've come and sat in Red Triangle stores on a number of occasions and talked about JPH as a landlord. talked about where the market is going. I've been at meetings where we've had market tenants, the Constable of St Helier, the Infrastructure Minister, myself, all trying to work together to improve the market and bring the markets to where we want them to be, because they can and should be the jewel in the crown of St Helier. But I'm afraid, yes, it's true that priorities did change, I think, after the vote of confidence and the second government came in and they moved money elsewhere. I think there is also an issue with the way that Jersey Property Holdings does act as a landlord. I believe that we got everyone onto the same contracts, which is really important, but those contracts weren't always ones which enable us to move the market forward. Things that we have done, which are really good, the market is now open late in the evenings. That brings more people to it. So there are various things we can do, but it has to be done in partnership, and the government has to commit to it. When it says it's going to put money forward, it then needs to put the money forward and not take it away. That was one of the problems with changing governments halfway through the term. I just want to say one other thing, which is slightly perhaps not popular, but actually St Helier as a town, for 100,000 people, is quite a remarkable town. If you go to towns in the UK of a similar size or smaller, you will find high streets that do not look like ours, that do not have lots of local stores, that do not have, they have vape shops and sweet shops and gift shops, but that's it.
Thank you.
So we do need to be proud about St Helier and work with it and give it our custom too. Thank you.
Next question, we've got somebody down here at the front who wants to ask a question.
Good evening, Peter Lamarinel.
That looks like a speech.
It is. It's a quick one. It's big. It's big. I'm from St Lawrence. Multiple ministers have dismissed requests for help for a social economic project, citing lack of budget. Because government no longer presents sport, leisure and recreation spends in its annual reports, a freedom of information request was raised. Multiple responses failed, but fortuitously, education admitted why. And I quote, "Cash spends on grounds maintenance, including playing fields, are charged under one accounting code for an entire school." My question, how can you restore our faith in claims made of effective transparency and scrutiny when spending on sport necessary for our physical and mental fitness is not even being measured?
Thank you. Are you clear on that question, Peter?
Yes, Peter. How do you know where you're going if you don't know where you are? How come so many areas of our government, and maybe certainly even Port and Andium, don't have to answer freedom of information questions? They lock them away. It's your money. You should be able to find out whatever you need to find out. They sometimes say, oh, competitive difficulties, we can't touch that. But a lot of the time, it's just secret squirrel stuff. It's your money. Sport, leisure and recreation is vital, just as the arts are. Who are we without the arts? Who are we without the sport? We are nothing. We're just working machines. So we vitally need this. I'd like to say I'm shocked that you couldn't get a response, but I'm not, I'm afraid. It is ridiculous. It's going back to that whole fear of being found out, fear of getting it wrong. So we do not give the information that is needed by the people of our island, because you own it. It's your information. You should be able to find out about it. So, Peter, I'm sorry, but I will challenge everybody and anybody if I get in. I'll make them jump through hoops, and I can use all my very many words in our assembly to twist it to make sure we get the information we need.
Thank you. Hilary.
Thanks. Thank you, Peter. And I absolutely think that we need to measure sports spending to see where we really are. And I think we have a dedicated sports assistant minister. I think the next person who gets in that role should really be focusing on that measurement. We did have the Jersey Performance Framework. I don't know if anyone has ever heard of it. It actually was part of the Based on Future Jersey, which apparently was a strategy of us having a vision and looking forward, and sports was one of those areas where we started measuring in this performance framework. Where has that gone? I became, when we first got in 2022, that was something under the government that I was part of. We were really still pushing the Jersey Performance Framework, and sports was one of those. So trying to gather those kind of data and understanding of how much is being spent on sports, but also what the outcome is, because it's not just about the sports, but also the well-being, the impact on health, the impact on well-being, the impact on economic activities as well. So we need to get back on track in understanding and measuring through the Jersey Performance Framework. I'm also been very frustrated that the contracts between schools opening times after school times have closed, and having sports clubs being able to access facilities has been so slow. We had the infrastructure minister constantly telling us that the contracts were nearly going to be signed, and it went on for at least a year and a half, and we still haven't seen those contracts signed. That must be the first priority for any infrastructure minister or sports minister, to have those, so we can use our facilities to the best as we can. Thank you.
Kirsten.
Thank you, Peter, and obviously we briefly discussed this at a previous hustings. Sport is split across 3 departments, effectively. The Department for the Economy looks after Jersey Sport, and that's funded to the tune of about £2 million, and also sports events, particularly with a view to creating sports events, supporting sports events, with a view to the tourism industry. There's the Infrastructure Department, which looks after areas such as Oakfield, the new sports facilities up by Holia. And then there's the Education Department, which obviously has lots. And from what you said, I think FP Fields, by the sounds of it, perhaps either sits there or in infrastructure. Now, from my perspective, infrastructure should very easily be able to say how much they spend on any one of their sites, such as Oakfield and so on. And I'd be surprised if they couldn't. But exactly, they're the ones that did answer. From my perspective, the Economy Department doesn't look after any facilities at all. But the Education Department looks after lots of facilities. And I'm afraid, and I don't mean, I know with the SEND question we had earlier, I picked on the Education Department, I don't mean to, but there is another issue here as well, and I saw it oddly enough with Gerrier. We were asking how much the Education Department is spending on Gerrier. It took us years to get that information from them, because they said it's wrapped up into the bigger budget, and this is exactly the same situation happening here. So I'm sorry, the answer to this is for the Education Department to start reporting properly on the way it spends its money and to break it down. I think there are problems there, and they need to be looked at by the next Education Minister.
Thank you.
Simple. Thank you for your question, Peter, and we have talked about this once or twice. It's an interesting thing. Sport, I love sport. When I was a youngster, I was always doing it. There seemed to be endless sports facilities and opportunities around. I'm disappointed to hear, but as has previously been said, not surprised to hear that you can't get the information you want out of government. And I think this is one of the core problems that we have got with the way our government currently works, and one of the things I alluded to that we need to change. Government is very, from my charity experience, and Hillary's mentioned it earlier, government is very strong on getting impact reporting from charities, etc. they support. They are horrendously bad at giving impact reporting on how they spend our money. And they seem to, and this leads into the belief that they just waste our money and we don't see any real impact. I think this leads into the function of government, actually, and the way it's structured. The ministerial system, I don't think, has worked as well as we hoped it could. It has created silos, and I think that's an example of what you're seeing with departments not working with one another. And I think that's a big job to change, and I'm sure you lot don't want to hear politicians talking about how they're going to work themselves again, but actually putting together some kind of task force structure that has authority and stretches across departments might be an option. And I know I'm working with Serena Guthrie on sport for the next term, and I think someone with her experience and capabilities has a great chance of driving the changes we need to see in this area, but in other areas. Sorry for going on for so long.
Okay, next question. So we'll go to this lady first, and then to that gentleman over there, and then the man at the back.
Thank
and
you.
then that man. Okay.
Hayley, St Lawrence parishioner. I just want to ask the deputies, because we've sort of potential deputies, sorry, going forward about what you want to come and do in our parishes. We've talked about high-level stuff in town and around the island, but what will you do in our parishes? And specifically, because I've got an interest in youth groups and what you want to do in our community with our young people, not just Scouts, which I'm part of, but other groups in our communities.
Thank you. First to answer this is Hilary.
Thank you, Hayley, for that question. I think for starters, as I mentioned, I'm linked to the St Lawrence Football Club. I think there should be more link. I don't know what's happened in the past, but I think we could try and build relations again with the football club. The other day, no plug, but my son, the under-14s, got into the final at Springfield against Grooville. Grooville came with everybody. They had a lot of supporters. St Lawrence, we had just the parents. It didn't feel like it was a community support for the youngsters wearing the crest of St Lawrence. I think that was a shame, and I think we could do more to link up on that. Youth club, I don't see why, and maybe it's something to discuss as well. This is just things that I've seen kind of as a deputy already. The youth club, what about, sometimes I'm seeing a very disconnect between St Lawrence North and St Lawrence South. Is there a way to maybe once a month being able to bring the youth club down to St Lawrence South to have that, so those in St Lawrence South can access the club? Maybe there is difficulty to get up to the youth club here, and maybe there could be a bit more facility swapping, etc., to be able to have that access, and those who can't travel up to be able to access in the south. And of course, the Scouts is a fantastic organisation, and it's something that is really used in the parish. And I think we've got a very strong Scout club.
Thank you.
So I think those are the kind of things that I see for youth specifically, and I'd like to work on.
Kirsten.
Thank you, Hayley. Thank you for all the work you do with the Scouts and other groups as well. This is, again, the sort of thing that I want to come back into the parish to start working with the successful Connétable in St Lawrence, because I think we can do a lot more with regard to youth groups and just community in St Lawrence, full stop. We've got a community centre up at Three Oaks. I think that can be expanded on, not necessarily physically in the size of it, but in the way it's used and the facilities that are available there. I think that's something that we can create a base around, that youth group, the community centre in Three Oaks. I also believe that communication is key to everything. And at the moment, I don't think we're really using the platforms quite correctly in the way that we should. We know, for instance, there are lots of people, I'm sure, in here use Facebook. No one under my age uses Facebook. And so if we want to engage with youth groups, we've got to use other platforms. We have to move beyond and use platforms that the youth actually use. I also think it's really important for us to mix older groups and younger groups. I'm chair of the St Lawrence Twinning Association, and I really want us to move, and I'm hoping that if I am elected and I'm able to concentrate back into the parish here, that we'll be able to build that and build different generations of people through the St Lawrence Twinning Association and Barneville Carteret. And it's things, how you do that is provide things that people enjoy doing. So let's learn French together. Let's get together, learn French, and then go and use it in Barneville Carteret. That's what they're doing in Barneville Carteret to encourage people to come to Jersey and join this Barneville Carteret Twinning Association and meet us. Learn English, though, not French. So a number of things, but communication is key. Thank you.
Phil.
Yeah, thank you for your question. So I'm going to start with a big shout out. So when I was a young man, I went to a youth club called Quavara, which is just around the corner from here and is celebrating, and to just distract you from next week, the weekend's election, is celebrating a big anniversary. So everyone go along to it. It's fantastic. It was a great time and it was great fun. So as young people, that we had lots to do of that nature. Now, I'm going to split my answer down into two because I had a very interesting conversation with the constable yesterday about community support and actually how I would like to get involved with the things I've done, particularly around the Call and Check programme, and support the three parishes to work together actually and almost become where they can be greater than the sum of the parts. So I think things like organisations like Call and Check can actually help support that. I'm sure there are youth organisations that could benefit from that as well. one of the other, I mean, we are 3 parishes we're talking as a district here, so I'm afraid I'm going to go into that. When we were at the Trinity hustings, there was a young man who asked the first question. He wanted to get off to see an Arsenal match because I think they were about to win the league. So we let him ask the first question, but he was talking about skateboarding facilities and actually trying to create something that young people are telling us they want to do, and that's what leads the way. We should let young people tell us what to do and then get it done.
Thank you. Peter.
Phil said it, Hayley. Talk to the people who have a stake in it. The young people have a stake, and we have to help them live their best lives right now on our island. By the way, thanks for all the work you do with young people. She's a superstar. We've got a problem, really. There used to be 4 deputies over this huge district. Since the senators came back in, we're now down to 3, and we all have to work across a large area to service the population. One of the reasons I don't want to go into government is I want the actual time now to connect with the community, because it's really hard. When I was previously in, I had to sort out the movement of glass bins because it was noisy, and neighbour disputes and all that sort of stuff, and still go into health meetings and councillor minister meetings. It was really hard. So your energy is spread. I would far rather directly serve the people of the parishes and listen to them, and I believe whoever is elected constable, work with them, because we've got to use the fabulous communities of the 3 parishes to benefit the communities themselves, and open dialogue and asking experts is the only way we'll do it, and the young people are experts in what they want out of their parish. So, yes, let's work together.
Thank you. Next question. I was going to go over to this gentleman who'd put his hand up.
Mike Hayden. Should the government be doing more to support food banks, promote the living wage, and address the stark inequalities in this island?
Thank you for that question. First to answer is Kirsten.
Thank you, Mike. I think government needs to support food banks, but rather than just supporting food banks, it needs to work to make sure that people don't need food banks. So in that sense, it does need to work with the living wage. The government also has to work, and we said this has been a refrain throughout the evening, but it's because it's true. Government needs to work with the third sector. It needs to work with charities to make sure they're delivering the help where it is needed. Again, the approach from government is always via a form, via a process, which means that I know this, and I see this through my work at Brighter Futures. People get missed out. And so we need to reach out to parishes, to charities, to help make sure that we are reaching the right people via government. That's absolutely vital, because people are being missed, and it's wrong. And I think this is one of the areas where parishes excel, because the constables and their teams know the people in their parish, and they know who needs to be helped. I also think that element of taking it from government to charities, also bringing it back into the parishes. If we do need to give out help in that respect, parishes are very good ways to do that. It comes with the kind of the stigma that some people feel if they're receiving handouts. That can be something which is taken away. But more importantly, parishes can do it with a heart in a way that government really fails to be able to do. So for me, it is a case of kind of parishes moving in as government steps away to try to make sure that we help the right people in Jersey.
Phil.
Thank you for your question. Yes, absolutely. There are quite stark inequalities on our island. There are a small, I think, group of people who are really, really struggling. The impact of the cost of living and the rates of increased inflation recently has really put pressure on that group of people. It is important, extraordinarily important, the government supports people in any way it can. Now, I will mirror what Kirsten said because of my position on the charity sector, and actually government should be enabling people who have expertise in an area to give the support that they recognise they need. I also agree with the element of the parishes. one of the great losses to this island was when the role of the parish got changed by the introduction of, the removal of some of the welfare services. I would like to see some support given back to that, as Kirsten's referred there. It is an area, though, I think, with the food banks, I would like to see more reporting from the food banks about what they're giving out and how they're giving it out, because I think they are very reluctant to give information about what they do. And some of the work that we did with the Policy Centre back in the day kind of exposed that. So I'd really like to understand the data behind that better. But what is interesting, I did some work with Alice at the Salvation Army about an alternative version to a food bank which empowers people and gives them control and actually takes that kind of gifting charity element out of it and makes it more their responsibility. So I'd like to see that explored more.
Mike, I was fortunate enough to meet with Patrick of Caritas yesterday covering this very subject, and I said how much I would love to be able to support the amazing work that Caritas do for the community. Again, I think it's for the third time a society should be judged by how it reaches down and helps people who are struggling and lifts them. Phil did make a good point about, again, if you don't know where you are, you don't know where you're going, some reporting back so that we can get a sense of how food banks are used, how many people, not necessarily names, but certainly the parish system knows its people, and the people who have to use food banks, their dignity takes a beating every time they have to do it. It's not fair. We shouldn't live in a society where food banks are even necessary. It is sad that our cost of living's gone through the roof. Some of this is out of our control. I mean, the world's a right mess at the moment, but much of it is in our control. We should question, and I mean, it keeps coming up, GST on food would be comparatively simple to remove, says the chief executive of the co-op. However, prices still rise. We have to support people. We have to know what is needed, and we have to place the help directly with people such as Caritas and the food banks to help our people live the best lives they can with dignity. So I'd love to be able to help if I can.
Thank you. Hilary.
Thank you, Mike, for the question. It's absolutely shameful that we do have food banks in Jersey and that we've seen a massive increase from users. Caritas has told me that a large part of their what is being accessed is energy vouchers. So it's not just food, it is energy vouchers. So I think it's really important, and as we're seeing fuel costs rise, that we do look at that in the new government and maybe see whether we can cut some fuel duty off, because actually those who are using the most fuel are the carers and actually those with who have a lower wages in society, because we don't travel that far in Jersey. So it's the ones who are constantly travelling around to support like carers and like construction workers, etc. And so we need to look at that. I think also we need to look at our relationship with the Jersey Electricity Company. We may be a majority shareholder, but we don't have that same power in the boardroom at all. We're not invited in the boardroom, so we need to look at that. We need to ensure the living wage continues in this new government. It was a commitment from this assembly that we've just had, but it doesn't mean that that continues depending on who gets voted in. So we do need to make sure that we continue having the living wage. Consultation has just been launched to look at what that new living wage should be, and we need to make sure that assembly respects that living wage and focuses on whatever is being decided. We need to look at a living pension potentially, because we just heard 26% of pensioners are in low wage. So we should look at a living pension as well and understand what they need to survive on pension as well in Jersey. Thank you. Sorry I took so long.
Thank you. So we're going to go to the middle of this chunk of people and then the back of that, and then we'll come to you with the glasses if there's time.
John, St Lawrence South. It's been touched on throughout the questions this evening, and that is the government organisations that we partly own or wholly own. Do we, as a government, do enough to exercise our right to vote and direct those companies for the best of Jersey. For example, JEC, buy the electricity in France, add a percentage, make a profit, job's done. Or Ports of Jersey, where they're measured on their financial performance rather than how many visitors they bring to the island. There are others, Visit Jersey and so on, but it's these organisations that the government have created, that the government have the votes on, and then passively sit by and don't direct.
So do we do enough to direct, I suppose, our arm's length organisations? Phil?
Yes, thank you for the question, John. The AOLs are quite controversial, and people keep looking at them for solutions that maybe they don't have. Now, I will start by saying I am actually a fan of government. I think I've probably made this clear during the evening, of outsourcing a lot of its function. I really am not a great fan of government doing stuff. I'm more of a fan of government enabling stuff and actually getting out the way of the people who are the experts in the field. Besides that, though, there does seem to be some dysfunction within the AOL network. Not all of them. Some of them do a really good job, I think, and actually they need to be applauded. So we need to review them. We need to review what they're doing. We do, I think, as you've just suggested, need to put the benchmarks on performance in slightly different places on these organisations. And the example you picked about ports is quite an interesting one, because I think there is a feeling at the moment that the behaviour of the ports around landing fees, etc., is contributing into food costs and other costs and causing issues. So I don't know the details in great depth here. I am in favour of the AOLs, but I do think we probably need to have a really close look at them going forward.
Thank you. Peter.
Thank you, John. I'm going to use a strange example, and that's the London office, which talks to Westminster. This is a strange example, but I will get there. I think there are 8 or 9 people working there. It costs in excess of 7 figures, I believe, to run every year. It may be great value for money. I have no idea. We don't get the feedback. It might be well worth it, but we don't know because we don't hear what's going on. Ditto, if we don't know, if government doesn't know quite what is going on with, say, ports, with, say, Visit Jersey, then how do we know we're getting value for your money? It seems ridiculous. And Phil's quite right. I don't think that it's a good idea for government to run everything. You should bring in the experts, let them get on with it, but have a seat on the board, make sure you know what the numbers are, or what the direction of the company is, and use the expertise of the company to feed back into the system. Again, it's about silos, and I loathe the silos that this island has built. If we just talk to each other, we could save pounds, save duplication, and be more open and honest. So yes, I'm completely in favour of allowing them to get on with it, but yes, government do need to know where our money is being spent and how we are recouping that money through the money that we invest.
Thank you. Hilary.
Thank you, John, for your question. As I just mentioned before, I do have a similar concern, and I don't think we do enough to ensure that our state-owned enterprises or our arm's-length organisations are doing enough in that vision and direction of Jersey. I think we've questioned many times the Treasury Minister over the last few years when she was looking at her relationship, because she has that relationship held with those different organisations. It's very a basic memorandum of understanding that relationship is held. And then there is very much this hands-off. I think it's really important that we have much more these KPIs are pushed, that we understand what are they doing for Jersey, that they go in the direction of where the government and government policies are driving. Still, yes, of course, not being subsumed into government, they stand apart, but that we're all driving with the same vision and the understanding, and that they are held to account by outcome-based accountability. So we really know what are they really doing for Jersey. We talked about measurement before. We don't see that as well with these organisations, and I think it's really important that we were able to ask the difficult questions And that's where FOIs come in. We cannot, as states members, ask enough questions to those organisations, and I really think that we need to be able to have access to what they're doing, their plans,
Thank you.
and also yourself as islanders, so we need more transparency.
Kirsten.
Fantastic question, John. Right, let's start at the beginning because it's a long tail. I may need more than a minute and a half. Right, no organisation is the same. It's really simple. And you can roughly split arm's length organisations in government into two different types. You've got the infrastructure ones and you've got the delivery ones. Now, the infrastructure ones, States of Jersey Development Company, Jersey Electricity Company, Jersey Water, Ports of Jersey, they're your infrastructure ones. They're run by Treasury. You've then got your delivery ones, Digital Jersey, Visit Jersey, Jersey Heritage, Jersey Business. They're run by the Economy Department. So I know a lot about delivery ones because I've just been working with them for the past 4 years. Now, the delivery ones come in different shapes and sizes. Some that deliver, and I'm focused on delivering what the government and the minister want them to deliver. Big tick. I love those that were like that because they reported and they did what we asked them to do. Then there were some that didn't. And they just kept saying, we're independent, you can't tell us what to do. Yes, we can. You're there to do what we want. So in that sense, there is some which need to change at the delivery level. At the infrastructure level, part of the problem is Treasury just see their role as their shareholder. So all they're looking at is, do we get a return on our dividends? They are not looking at in the same way as, is this company doing good for the whole of Jersey? And that's what needs to change. And so States of Jersey Development Company, for instance, as an example, haven't really built anything for the last 3 years. Does that mean we should be looking at them and saying, well, is States of Jersey Development Company looking at what we need it to do?
Thank you.
But from Treasury's perspective, as long as it keeps getting a dividend, it doesn't mind. So that doesn't work. So there are changes that need to be made, but each one needs to be treated separately and looked at separately. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the man at the back next for the next question.
Thank you. My name's Paul Mara, and I'm a parishioner. I have a very simple question, and it's a question which 10 years ago probably wouldn't have been asked, and probably wouldn't need to have been asked. But we live in different divisive times. I'm certain that the four candidates are aware of the ruling of the Supreme Court of England and Wales last August in relation to the legal definition of man, woman, male and female. As such, I would like to know whether they feel that women, biological females and girls, ought to be protected from men accessing their single-sex spaces, toilets, changing rooms, prisons, sports, refuges. And before you make fun of this question, be aware that your answer will determine whether I vote for you or not.
Thank you for that question. Peter is first.
And Paul, it falls to me to answer first. I understand, and again, it's not taking the question at all lightly. If there has never been a problem with women born biological man, then yeah, bear with. If there's never been a problem, then we wouldn't even be having this discussion. But we know from news reports that there has been a problem with born men calling themselves women who have gone into female spaces, and there has been violence. There has been sexual violence. And so we have to address the fact that there is a problem. I personally am very uncomfortable because I completely believe in equality. I believe in a person's right to call themselves whatever they want, however they want, dress how they want, do what they want. However, there has to be a boundary where women who are born women feel safe. And as soon as that space is threatened, we have to question how we as a society allow that line to be crossed. So I am not comfortable with the idea that biologically born men who may have mental health issues can walk into that space and cause a problem with the women in that space. I'm just uncomfortable with it myself personally.
Hilary.
Yes, I'm going to take a very different tact on this. I think that we're talking about an extremely extreme minority here, and I think they're being used as a scapegoat for many ills in this society, and they are the most vulnerable in our society, and it's very, very rare occasions where women have been attacked by trans women, and I think that those who are very concerned, please be more concerned about women and children and girls and children in our society in Jersey at the moment that are subjected to violence in their homes and in public spaces. We should be really concerned with that, and we should put more effort and energy into supporting not only the victims of those crimes, but also to try to stop those crimes from men who are perpetrating those crimes. And we're seeing it even increasing now that we're having, for example, we've seen it, we're having those who are able to access through WhatsApp very clearly being able to exploit children, and this could be, and anyone could access this from Jersey to be exploiting children anywhere in this world through the simple voice of WhatsApp. For me, this is where our energy should be, rather than focusing on very, very vulnerable in our society. We need to make sure that violence doesn't happen to anybody in public spaces. But for me, if we could channel our support to violence against women and girls, that's where we need to focus. Thank you.
Kirsten.
It's not about labels, it's about behaviour. It's that simple. I've written one word down, behaviour. Because it doesn't matter if you're male or you're female. If you're being violent towards somebody, then your behaviour is totally unacceptable. And it doesn't matter if it's hidden or out in the open. It may come as some surprise to most people in the room who haven't been in the government building, the new one down at Union Street. They are single-sex toilets, as in they're mixed. You walk in, the men's are on the left, all the cubicles, the women's are on the right, all the cubicles. So we're in there, we're seeing each other every day, saying hello as we pop into our bathroom, because it's all just together. So in that sense, I have no problem with there being kind of mixing, so to speak. But what matters is safety. What matters is safety. And people have a right to feel safe, no matter where they are. And I completely agree that violence against women and girls should be top of the agenda, because it is not a strategy that has been sufficiently supported so far. I sat down one day, and my wife will know about this, I sat down one day and looked at 1 week in the world of violence against women and girls, and I wrote down just using the internet, every item that I could find where a woman or a girl had been harmed by someone they knew. The list was endless. It was just 1 week. I published that because who was it who was harming them? It was always a man, and it was always a man who knew them. That is what we need to get to the bottom of. That is what we need to stop happening. Men need to respect women and allow them to live safely and happily in Jersey. That's that simple.
Phil.
Okay, Paul, thank you for your question. So my answer, I'm a scientist, so it's very straightforward. As far as I'm concerned, sex is determined by biology, so your biological sex is what you are, okay? However, there has been a very long and complex debate over the last years about gender and what you will choose to be your gender. And I think it has caused an awful lot of complexity in the way people think about our society and the way it works. There are people using, as Hilary said, a very small number of people to make a point which isn't necessarily real. Well, it is real, but it's in a very small amount. But actually, as the other guys have said here, the issue there is about one individual being violent and taking an attack on another person. It doesn't matter what kind of attack it is. And that is a real problem. It exists in the Vorg work. I've worked with Kate Wright, who's been leading on a lot of that, quite a lot over the last few years. And so we need as a society to deal at that level, and I'm afraid the debate about gender, biological sex, I think has actually got in the way of sorting out the problem.
Thank you. Well, I think we've run out of time now. There's just 1 minute to go before 9 o'clock. If you do have questions that you didn't have time to ask, I'm sure the candidates will be milling about for a while, so you can try and have a chat to them individually. Thank you for your questions, and thank you to the candidates for all their answers.
And of course, we just say thank you very much indeed to Kathy, who's done a sterling job this evening, as always. Thank you, Kathy.
And we must say thank you to Lisa for handing the microphone round. And thank you to the tech team over there and everybody else from the parish who has helped organise tonight's event. If you want to get in touch with any of these candidates or any other candidates, you can find their contact details on the vote.je website or on the booklets that were delivered to your house. In election day, it's Sunday, 8 till 8. Be there. Thanks very much for coming. Good night.